So, good day to you. Hello. My name is Kjartan Emilsson, and Atle is also going to talk a little bit later. What I do, I actually, originally I was lead game designer of Eve at the start, 2001, and was responsible, amongst other things, to do the seeding of the universe and sort of create it. And then I took a stint away, going to Shanghai for 5 years or so, and came back to Iceland. I'm now handling the sort of the MMO design of the Dust. And a lot of that development is actually happening here in Iceland because it integrates with Tranquility. And some of the things that I'm being faced with is to basically go back a little bit to how do we integrate Dust into Eve, the fabric of Eve, so to speak. So that is basically the subject of this presentation. So this is my day job. We start with the universe. Where there are all kinds of seeding decisions that you need to make when you're sorry? There are all kinds of seeding decisions you need to make when you create a universe. One of the things first is to sort of get an approximate size of the systems you want to have. How many systems? How do you want to create regions, and the sort of what function is it supposed to have in terms of travel and distances? And then within the solar system, what's the level of detail you want to achieve? The resource distributions, the security, status, landscape. And then down to the planets, where we're basically now is sort of, we're sort of like bringing our focus to the planets. It had already been done, of course, with planetary interaction, but these are more what we need to do for the planets for the purpose of Dust, and how does it show up in Eve. And just for fun, actually, when I was writing this presentation, I thought that maybe for those of you that haven't been at previous FanFest, it might be fun for you to look at some old stuff that I dug up. So one of the questions originally that I had was, how do we create this universe? And I mean, I know we have to have stars and solar systems and stuff like that, but how do you link them up, and why is that like that? So according to the storyline, they used to be like these systems which were like closed off, and then they discovered like faster than light travel, and suddenly they could jump around their home systems, and that was like the seed of the empires. So it sort of made sense to think of like the empires building up from a single point and sort of growing to the next system you could reach, and from there you could reach other systems. And me being a chaos physicist and all, that reminded me of something that I had seen in my studies, and I hope this works. This is like aluminum dissolving into sulfate or something like that. I don't know, it's chemistry. But it's basically, it forms like an aluminum crystal. And the funny thing about this is that the way you simulate this in physics sort of reminded me of the purpose that we wanted for the Eve universe, because there is a type of algorithm or method or algorithm that is used to simulate this kind of crystal growth, which is called diffusion limited aggregation. And I'll explain it to you a little bit. The way it works is that you have an initial seed of, you can think of it as some kind of sticky ball. And then you define a radius around that ball. And then you randomly put another ball and let it do a random walk within that sphere. And if it goes out of the sphere, you just ignore it, you start with another one. But eventually, it will hit up with another ball and stick to it. And as it grows like that, it sort of grows into a crystalline structure like this. And that's when I decided that this would be a cool way to create a universe. And here is actually the tool used to create the universe. Can you all see this? Yeah. So basically, this is the empty void before anything happens. And now let's start with Amar or something. I just took a point here, and it's it starts growing. And I just pause it a little bit here. So you see that here I also introduced some slight logic to actually fragment this into constellations. But then you can see how it grows there. And then I can stop it like that, and then maybe add another seed. And it will sort of grow into each other. I will pause it here and create another empire here. Like this. And then I'm going to have one squeezed here in between. And then you just let this grow. This is a number of stars in the systems. And actually, the version I used was a slightly more elaborate one because it actually did this in 3 dimensions rather than 2 dimensions. So it could actually grow more into each other. And I think we used about 20 seed points. And we did a lot of trials and errors to see it and to nudge it. But this eventually became the world of Eve. You can actually export it here. No, okay. This doesn't have the export function. I don't think we should change it now. I don't think that would be very popular. And why did this reset itself? Sorry about that. Like this. So and I thought it was also a good time to admit some sins, or because I was digging into this very, very old file backup that I had, and I found this file. This was actually for the seeding of the asteroid belt, and there you can see some people didn't believe that claim, but if you look at this, this is the answer to the life and universe and everything. It's all in the fabric of Eve. Everything, all the random generation was seeded with 42. And now, that wasn't really a sin, but the next one is. I'm not sure if you will spot it. Does anyone spot it? So basically, it was funny. In 2003, when Eve came out, we started hearing rumors on the forums, like, where is this Archon or ore? Have somebody seen it anywhere? I mean, this must be very, very rare. And we said, yeah, it's very rare. It's difficult to find it. I mean, you have to really go far and fetch it, see it in the belts, or maybe it's all mined up. And then the rumor got more and more persistent that it was really, really rare. And that's when I found out that I made a spelling mistake. So it actually didn't seed. So that was embarrassing, to say the least. But it's there now, so. But this is part of things that needs to be done here. Like these are distribution factors that we were looking at originally, and also when we were doing this seeding of asteroid belts. It was this kind of problems that we have in seeding. It's like, we use minerals as the composition of items, and then we sort of implied a certain scarcity of these minerals, and then we had to reverse calculate that into ores, and then we have to reverse calculate it in what kind of distribution of ores would, in the end, bring that scarcity profiles of the minerals, and then try to sort of distribute it across the universe in a way that follows some security status kind of profiles. So, but this is all old history. So I'm going to go back to our planets. So what the goal that we had for the planets here was to basically, how do we strategize the planet terrain? And also you might say that it's already, there is also a strategic element to the planet terrains through planetary interaction. But here we actually wanted to have, a terrain and boundaries which you own. Not like in planetary interaction where it's basically single players, not corporations, and they can sort of be on top of each other. So it doesn't create like a sense of ownership of a piece of land. And so it's basically a question of creating those districts that we call on planets. And the districts are really, we decided, originally we had the thought of sort of tiling the whole planet with hexagons because they look cool. And we still use the hexagons here because they somehow, it must be hexagon in sci-fi. But we decided not to tile it because if we wanted to tile it, we had the problems that if we had to have a reasonable amount of districts on a planet, the districts would need to be huge, like continent size. And we didn't want that. So we decided to actually have just like a place, the districts on the planets themselves, with a radius which we haven't quite determined yet, but we probably want to have around 10 to 20 districts on a planet. And one of the things that we'd like to do in Eve is to make modifications in the way the planet shaders work, because already you have seen cities on planets, and what we want to do is to actually then make that coherent with the districts on the planet. So you would be able to visually look at the planet and see its districts by looking at those structures. Those are pretty clear on the nighttime, but we need to find a nice visual way to make it visible in the daylight as well. But that's going to be solved. And it was very important for us to also give the impression that the planets are alive, because there are people there. So if there's a dust battle going on in that district, you should be able to see some kind of flashes and explosion. So that, if you're just flying by, you're not participating in any of this, you're just flying by and you look at this planet, you see ooh, there's a lot of things happening there. And it's actual people that are doing stuff there. And war barges also shown somehow like this. There's a lot of questions about the war barges, obviously, because they are kind of supposed to be a ship, and that means that it should really be in Eve. And it probably will be. But at this point, we don't want to bring that complexity into play. We want to be able to control a little bit the user experience within Dust, and having an Eve player destroy your war barge is going to be very disrupting, especially once you can't fly yourself. So going back to the districts, you can. The idea there is that they can be owned by corporations, and the function of a district is going to be determined by what we call a surface infrastructure, which you should think of as something substantial. It's not like a little house. It's basically because the districts are large, it's like 200 kilometers, and the idea is that there is an urban center there, even though we're not playing into that. That will be yet another game. But there are cities and people there, and there is a function to the districts, which might be some kind of refinement or production facilities, research centers, etc. And so assigning a surface infrastructure to the district is part of the gameplay. And that is part of the sort of sandbox gameplay of Dust, where you as a corporation would actually go on a planet, you claim a district, or you fight for it, and you sort of improve your district by deploying a surface infrastructure on it. And then there is questions about how do we seed the districts on the planet. There is a small problem, or not a problem, but we have to face certain realities, which are basically restrictions that we have because of memory and such memory footprint on the PlayStation. So we decided to only go for temperate planets for now, because we can't really have environments for gas planets or something like that, which would be strange floating districts or something like that. So we sort of decided to limit ourselves to temperate planets. And we also have a distribution, we seed a distribution that will depend on the security status. And for example, in high-sec, we will seed the districts with NPC owners. And the high-sec districts will essentially be fought over by Dust mercenaries through a quick match-made games. So these are the sort of game modes which you would be accustomed to in terms of a normal FPS. You just go into a game and you get match made, and these battles actually happen on a district in high-sec. You will be able to see it from Eve, but it's not, it doesn't have a meaningful impact on it. It's pure NPC stuff. Then we have the factional warfare space, where we will have, again, NPC, but there it is slightly more integrated because it integrates into the factional warfare mechanism. And then the idea is that below that, low-sec and null-sec is going to be all unclaimed districts up for grabs. But we're sort of like, all of our approach with Dust is really, we start with the FPS, and we start with the NPC aspect of it. And then we see, depending on your reactions and how it all goes, then we gradually want to move towards the sandbox gameplay. So again, coming back to some of the problems we have with the environments, to create all these environments for these. I think there are about 7,000 temperate planets at Eve. We have to find ways of creating a variety without actually having to design 7,000 environments, which are very expensive to do. It's much more expensive than designing empty space like we have in Eve. So we needed to find some clever ways to do that. Another thing that we also need to interact with is basically the current planet shaders. They sort of define the land mass and sea levels of the planet. And these are actually some kind of terrain. You can't really see the elevation from far, but we cannot replicate those terrains everywhere on the PlayStation. So one of the things we need to do is to select good spots on the planet, and we have some algorithm to do that, to automatically find some interesting district locations. And then we need to sort of interpret the planetary parameters, like, for example, is the district close to the north or south, or is it close to the equator? Is it close to sea? And so you have all kinds of environmental information that should then guide our system that I will describe here, which we called Galaxy, to actually choose the right combination of available content to sort of create a variety. So at the base level that we have our height maps. This is kind of the most elementary part. And one of the reasons why we couldn't really use, because if you take the terrain on the planets, they are kind of procedural, or they are kind of mixtures of different landscapes. So you have actually quite a random factor in it. But that is kind of difficult to do from a level design point of view in an FPS. You cannot just use an arbitrary terrain, because it wouldn't make sense from a battle point of view. So the terrains are usually chosen in such a way that they sort of make sense from an FPS point of view. So they need to be handcrafted, or at least to a very large amount. But they are pretty big. I think the terrains are 5 times 5 kilometers, is that?
Yes.
Yeah. They use some mega terrain texture system, so it's really large terrains. So you would usually select a height map to a district. And then for a given height map, the level designers actually define slots for structures. And it comes in basically 3 sizes. And this is unique for a given height map. And you have you have the placement of these slots. These are empty slots, and basically come in these 3 sizes. And so the big ones, which are called outposts, these are the real, like, epic structure of a district. They define the structure. And, and then they have some side structures, which are like this network of medium and then up to the small details of the terrain. So these can be plugged into any kind of, for any given outpost can be put in any big slot. So you could have like multiple terrains, and you could choose to put the outpost on this there. And another thing that we have is what we call environment packages. Now, these are basically collections of textures that define a certain, like, certain of probably, define the environment to a level. For example, if it's lush and green, or is it desertic, or is it snow, etc. So, so here we have the variability of the height map. We have the slot system, and then we can sort of switch to the environment. So this would, for example, depend on what kind of planet it is, or where the districts are located, etc. And then on top of that, we have what we call moods. So these could be all the way from like light placement, where the sun is it low on the horizon, creating long shadows, or is it high? The skybox, is it a lot of clouds, electrical storms kind of thing, or is it very sunny and blue skies? And these affect a lot your perception of the same environment. And then for a given surface infrastructure that you, like I said before, you apply a surface infrastructure to a district, then there is an authoring that says that, okay, this kind of, like, for example, a production facility, we will put the outpost number 57, which is a graphic asset that we have, put that in a socket 0, whatever socket 0 is on this height map. It might be different depending on the different height maps, so it will not be at the same spots. But you're sort of like pouring the surface infrastructure on the height map, and it will adjust to whatever socket layout there is there. And so even though you have the same function, they would adapt to the different terrain, and then you have the different environments, etc. So this is sort of the big, ugly picture of it. And this gives us a certain level, like I said, of diversity. And of course, we would like to be able to have like unique terrain for every single planet. But I mean, it's not at least realistic to do that now. So this is the path we're going to use. And then eventually, as both if we add more content, then we can add more diversity to the districts. And if we evolve our rendering technology, adding some procedural stuff, etc., this might get more realistic and more like unique everywhere. Yes, then I'm sort of like stepping back out of that, but Atle is going to probably go a little bit more in the terrain. So maybe this would be the right time to do that? Or show you some stuff?
Let's see what I can show. I'm going to show you guys screenshots.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm not going to take too long. I want to show you guys a glimpse, or give you guys a glimpse into what we are developing today in Shanghai, and how it differs from what you're playing in the other room. But it shows off the environment types that Kjartan is talking about. And one of our level artists, he put this together for you guys. Wait, where's my terrain? For you guys to see, to get a sneak peek. So here we have one of the new terrains. And this is obviously some deserted, landscape. This is at a scale that is far bigger than the FanFest build that we have in the other room. This is a full 5-kilometer map. It doesn't have all of the details, the terrain sockets or the small sockets that Kjartan was talking about, inserted in it. But you can imagine how there's a socket here at the left, and we can mess that terrain up, create unique gameplay there. using the stenciling. And one thing about our terrain engine, and this is I'm not very good at talking about the geeky stuff, but I'll try. We use occlusion maps for the height map itself, mega texture, which I think Carmack had in his engine. And that allows us to stream in data based on distance to the player. What that gives us is resolution constant, but size independent terrains. So even if we've chosen 5-kilometer terrains, we could easily go to 50. It's probably not very fun. It's very big, being in a scout trying to run. I guess we would sell more vehicles, but anyways, on the PlayStation, this is coming. The PlayStation is very powerful, but it is a console. Just like other consoles, it has certain limitations. So we have to use it properly. We have to use the cell CPU, very powerful, but we have to invent new ways of rendering things. The good thing is that that obviously putting that much focus into it instead of doing run-of-the-mill type stuff allows us to achieve big things, to render more things on the screen at the same time. But anyways, let's go through this a little bit. Now I want to show you guys what happens when we put a new environment type. Same terrain, looks completely different. And this is, the very similitude of it, looking at a planet and you see something that looks desert colored or brown or whatever, and then you go down there and it looks lush and green and stuff like that is kind of stupid. Like, we don't want you guys to feel kind of the lack of realism in it. So it's very important for us that even if it's not changing gameplay that much, it just simply looks more real. So yeah, this is one step closer to photorealism in our game. And we're pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I wanted to mention this, though it wasn't really my purpose to go into, this gameplay part of it. But it's part of the way we seed things. And here's an example that we're envisioning for factional warfare, where you basically have a district pre-seeded on the planet with a what we call a surface command center as a surface infrastructure deployed on it. And the surface command centers are like kind of unique surface infrastructure in the sense that you can only have one district having that kind of structure on a planet. And so it sort of defines your control of that planet. So it's pretty important. And the idea is that you then have a sort of matching structure out in space. Could be customs office, but we usually refer to it as orbital command centers to sort of make it sound similar. And they sort of have when you have these alliances, like basically the owner of the districts on the surface and the owner of the orbital structure, when they are chums, however that is defined, we call it, that would be some kind of treaty between them, then they sort of help, they live in symbiosis with each other. So in this case, for example, and this is an example of these different maps that we have with the different sockets, is that and that's also something that maybe I didn't quite mention well enough, but with these height maps that we have, we can also define we call it hub and spoke. So the hub is really where the outpost is. That's the main map. But then you can have auxiliary maps, which are sort of supporting functions to the district. And in this case, we have an auxiliary map, which is an orbital artillery installment. And what it does, actually, is providing defense to the orbital structure. So if there's any enemies that are going to try to take over the orbital structures, they get fired upon. You can imagine as a turret, except it's on a surface. And so in this case, the way that you would actually silence that gun would either to go, or you would always try to go with the infantry and try to silence it, orbital bombardment could also switch it off. So that creates sort of a nice interplay together of the surface and the orbit. This is still all NPC, of course, seeded, but this is sort of the way we're envisioning that, take it forward towards sandbox gameplay. And also note that contribute to sovereignty in this case, it is in the meaning of the factional warfare sovereignty. It's not the nullsec sovereignty. So yeah, I think it's probably time for questions, if we have. And there was somebody who suggested that if you have questions, it's probably better to go in line to this microphone, because otherwise people will have problems.
So,
Sorry, is it on?
hello.
Yep.
So, based on what I've seen here, is that implying that in terms of like the planetary interaction that the EU players are doing, that has no impact on the maps and what's going on? And
No, like I said, our goal with introducing the dust sort of reality into the EVE universe is pretty careful. So we didn't want to mess up with the economical balance in EVE too much at that point. But I personally think it's very straightforward to actually imagine that you would have some kind of integration with that at some point. But what path to take there is going to come with discussions with you guys and see how it makes sense. But I think first we need to get it into Tranquility, get it to work, get people familiar with it, and then people, I think, will see, oh, it would make sense to do this like this. So, for example, one idea, and I'm just saying this just as a completely stupid idea, but you could, like, if you might want to say that if you, as a planetary interaction guy, would move your command center within a district boundary, you might get a bonus for that fact. And that way, you would be sort of grouping all these various command centers, which are now scattered randomly around the planet, to within some kind of administrative domain and make some interaction between the people.
okay. But the structures themselves and everything currently, well, probably at launch will have nothing to do. You could have multiple
no.
BI. Okay.
But I mean, it's obviously it should be, but.
My question is actually about the meshes that you're going to use for the buildings. Are they going to be generic, or are they going to be factional and set up by region?
Factional.
Factional?
Yeah. So we have to fill in that over time. It takes a long time to create, the same thing, but in 4 variants. So in the beginning, you will have something like we're playing now, the biomass outpost is an industrial reprocessing, one of the SIs, or thematic to the SI that you've chosen. Yes. But yeah, that's Caldari today. And when we release, we probably won't have all 4 variants, but over time we will. Just have to fill in the fractals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've talked a lot about installing these in high-sec, low-sec 00. What about wormhole space? Is there any plans for putting dust in wormhole?
Yes, but we're not going to tell you about it.
Hello, before I ask my question, I've got to get a couple of shout-outs to the guys that are probably going to see this in a couple of hours when it actually goes live on EVE TV. The guys on IRC, the guys on the forums, and the guys on Twitter for Dust. Love you guys. This is your shout-out. Ash, stop bugging me about it. Anyway, on to the actual question. You mentioned that temperate planets are going to be the only ones available at launch. Now, I can safely assume that you will be working towards bringing the other ones into the game, but do you have any sort of cool game ideas or variations on gameplay with these other planets? Like, for instance, oceanic planets, if you read the description of all the structures, they're on the ocean floor. So is it, we're going to see some kind of mini-submarine warfare in Dust?
That would be cool. I mean,
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and
we could actually just make it the spaceships in EVE and call them submarines, because
Yeah.
they kind of like move in the sea.
Yeah.
Well, Gaslands, have you got any? That's my idea. What are your ideas? Have you got any?
I think we all want to play in Cloud City.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough.
We have a lot of ideas, and we've done, prototypes and tried things out and
Do
with
actually
different
enjoy
moods and environment sets and stuff like that to
So-
like see if we could achieve something realistic with lava planets or plasma planets and stuff like that. But we're very, very much focused on solving the core gameplay.
Yep. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned temperate planets. What about barren planets? Are they going to be, due to the probably kind of similarity to at least desert regions and temperate planets, are they going to be very quickly brought out as well, or
They're
is there a
first
bit
in
more?
line.
Or is
They
there a bit
actually
more?
they would be easier, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna
they're
say-
temperate.
So yeah, because are we going to actually possibly even see them for launch if you guys get some lucky stars going? No.
No.
All right. Anyway, thanks.
Hey, you have 7,000.
The environment textures that you were talking about, that you overlay on the terrain, will they be changing with the seasons according to proper orbital mechanics?
Technically, it's possible. It's just authoring the content for it that's time-consuming. That's cool.
Interestingly enough, mine is kind of piggybacking off of that. My question is, since we're going to introduce temperate planets first, is there any talk of adding like extreme weather conditions in gameplay, like torrential rainfall or heavy snow? So as tanks may be able to get through snow pretty good, but a small scout car would have trouble, gaining traction in snow.
Yeah, we want to do that, but it's probably something that we have to do a little bit later. It's not core gameplay. It's like an added thing. Expansion. Some.
Soon. No.
Soon, yeah. TM, not the other soon.
Are you going to implement with the size of the planets with gravity, jump length, and things like that? Stamina with different atmospheres and things like that. Like if you are in a small planet with lesser gravity, then you can jump further and things like that. Move the vehicles faster if the atmosphere is thinner.
We will definitely get there. But I mean, like just to make it very clear, we are going for a fairly standardized when it comes to gravity and like atmospheric conditions and stuff like that to begin with. And it's more about creating a system that allows us to pile on these ingredients and populating or seating the universe with all of these parameters. But then once we have the core gameplay, all of these elements and so on, we will get there. Like we will.
I think the generic answer to this kind of questions is that, as much as you are, we are fired up about being able to do everything. And that's kind of the idea with Eve has been from the start. It's like, we sometimes use that analogy with Eve that it's like building a fractal. You start with the large structures and then you go into and refine the details. So yes, we want to do all this, but right now we're so focused on just getting this, running. That's our first focus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Just the first thing is you're being careful with it, and we really appreciate that. You've got a lot of ideas. You're busting at the seams. We like that. I really like that you guys are being careful about it. I just had a question, a clarification. The players get to choose what they plug into those spots?
Yes.
And so maybe I choose a layout, and then I apply it to a map, and then I apply it to another map. And then
So you mean into the individual sockets that are around,
I
the
choose
outposts?
what my large, medium, and small is, and the map chooses.
No. You will be able to influence, obviously, what surface infrastructure you
But
choose.
currently, this is like a quality of the surface infrastructure. What structures goes into the sockets. So, but I think on the battlefield you have the installations, right, which are kind of structures, but they're more like within a match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not persistent structures, but you can deploy them, and they are big. Like they will shape the gameplay and
For
extract
that
resources.
match.
Do all, yeah.
And they stay there until someone busts it up and replaces it?
Well, they don't persist there, not now, but that idea has been suggested that maybe we
Capture,
could just
V,
have.
destroy,
Yeah, but the goal is to blow it up. For the other one.
Thanks.
You made mention of seeding temperate planets. How is that going to affect systems that don't have temperate planets currently in the system?
I think that's okay. I mean, there are even systems which are lots of temperate planets, actually. We found some systems which are 4 or 5. It's kind of surprising, actually. And
Was it a spelling mistake?
I think it's... But I think it's okay to have this kind of variety where, sometimes for some fluke reasons you don't have anything. So we just make sure that the game design is not relying on that to be there, to the point where, well, it's not there, so we can't do this, for example.
So would that mean eventually, maybe down the line, expansion or such, you guys might add the additional planets to add maybe some some warfare in some of the
Yeah.
other areas?
I think there are a lot of EVE players that wouldn't like the idea of adding planets just like that. I don't know.
Well, no, I'm not talking like adding planets, but other
Oh,
types
yeah.
of planets.
Oh.
Yeah. Like barren planets, for example.
Correct.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
we
sorry,
will
yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
add more.
absolutely, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Coming to orbital bombardment, they seem very impressive, but is there going to be any sort of lingering damage for those? Could you, say you wanted to just burn the Earth, could you just glass a district to nothing, and then it would take a lot of resources perhaps to rebuild it?
Would you guys like it? See, we're going to work with you guys on defining all of this.
Burn the Earth, right?
Scorched earth, yeah.
But then you have to accept the fact that the orbital artillery that is going to shoot at your Titan might be very powerful.
Yeah, we can't only give you big guns.
Yes, that would be completely acceptable. Also, with orbital bombardment, so far we've only seen them with dreadnoughts, or I guess it was, yeah. What was it? It wasn't that. Oh, it wasn't that.
With artillery.
Well, if you're referring, yeah, the trailer, that was a bigger one.
Right, and so that would have had a much more devastating impact. Are there plans to do fighters and fighter bomber strikes like they hinted at in the trailer, or is that still very far off or not being considered anymore?
Well, basically, we see it as a curve of, coolness factor going from cool to awesome. And, like we're somewhere, right now we're just looking at the middle part. And because we don't want the gameplay now to be such that you just wipe out the district. And at the same time, we still want the people that are doing it to be somewhat involved. But we're definitely trying to look, from a game design point of view, we're looking at the whole spectrum. And if you're interested, I think there is I'm participating in a roundtable tonight around orbital warfare.
Yep.
And I guess I don't want to hold up too much, but I guess my idea for I was thinking like fighters could be used for very strategic strikes against perhaps vehicles and such. Those battleship strikes were good against local groups of, soldiers, but then like dreadnought or above,
Yep.
those would like just, I guess, eliminate entire swaths of territory, something like that.
And kill everyone in them.
Including your team.
Yes, including your team.
Now, with some of the planets in EVE, I'm sure you may have heard this from people before, but some of the planets have very interesting stats given in-game when you go show info, such as lava planets that are frozen solid or temperate planets that have virtually no gravity. Are you going to fix up these numbers with dust? Or are you just going to make it that eventually when you do add those factors in, like gravity, that it's going to be you jump and you just fly into space?
Well, I don't know. Like, I've been reading about some weird planets or moons recently. Like, there are some moons which have volcanic activity out of water or something like that. I'm not talking about in reality. And so, you could sort of, I think, justify some of these oddballs from...
Yeah, but frozen lava planets?
Yeah, because what kind of lava is it? Is
how
it
fast does it
methane
move?
lava or...
All right, I'll give you that one. But still. If there are instances, though, where we find things like that, would you change them or would you just leave them as is?
At least it's not on our current roadmap to change that. But if we see that there is an obvious mismatch, especially in the way you see them, for example, and then I guess we would do it. But
Yeah, thank you.
it's not on our plan right now.
But Captain has the power to change it.
So there's been a lot of talk about the different planets and following up with different planet types and stuff like that. But is there any thought to expanding dust combat into places that perhaps aren't on planets, like stations or ships? Or
You have a lot of ideas.
I mean, I'm sure you've thought about it, but is that like, would you rather go there sooner than more planets, or it's just going to be a planet?
Would you like your ship to be boarded by dust mercenaries?
If I can hire some to fight back, then I think so.
No. I think this is something definitely that needs to come from you guys, if you want that, because this is definitely something that is very easy to imagine doing.
There's nothing that stops us doing it. The tech and the databases and everything allow us to do all of that. But
can you do orbital bombardment in high sec as well?
No.
So just low sec and null sec?
Factional warfare to start with. There's no orbital bombardment in high sec current.
When it comes to orbital bombardment, when we saw the demo, the Abaddon and the other battleship, Maelstrom, they warped into the same spot. Now the planets rotate. These battles might be on the far side of the moon. Are we gonna will the mercenaries give us a bookmark to find where their target is, or are we going to have to travel around the dark side of the planets to find these battles?
Actually, this is a very good question, which I won't answer because, and it is truly a very good question because we're like looking at this, and it is a problem, and we're trying to find some like elegant way to solve it, and we might not be able to solve it completely to the point where it's acceptable, like from a realistic point of view.
Because it looked like the Abaddon was stationary. He's stationary for the strike. So, he's got to get himself in position. So, how are you going to deliver that position as the planets are rotating?
Exactly. In the perfect world, we should have, we should really have orbiting structures. Like, a station in orbit around a planet should really rotate around a planet. And currently, our Destiny, our physics engine, doesn't support that. And changing that is a substantial work, and it's sort of a core system of Eve, and you don't want to mess with Destiny so much. And no pun intended.
It's something that we're looking for solutions. Anyway.
Yeah, we're trying to find solutions, but without going to the point of doing surgical, open heart surgery on Destiny.
So maybe when these orbital strikes come in, it's going to be, the battle's going to be there when you...
Can you speak in the mic?
When a battle takes place is where you warp into the planet, say it's 0 or 100 kilometers, is when there's a battle taking place on the planet and you're warping to do the orbital strike, will it be like a set piece? Because like I say, if the planet's rotating and the battle's over there and you warp in from one direction, you'd always end up in the same place at the planet.
No,
so
we don't anticipate that. But maybe because we're running out of time, but there is an orbital warfare road. Roundtable. So okay. So thank you all.